Before the internet was in our pockets, before the word app existed, and certainly long before any code was open source, the mobile phone was not a tool of the masses. It was a badge of power. Welcome to the Brick Age, a time defined by pure, unadulterated, proprietary firmware. The year is 1983. The scene is the aggressive, aspirational landscape of American business, immortalized by Gordon Gekko clutching his phone on the beach in Wall Street. The object in question, the Motorola Dyna-TAC 8000X. It wasn't a phone. It was a £2, $4,000 status symbol, a price tag equivalent to a down payment on a small house today. It screamed, "I am important enough to be reached anywhere." What powered this behemoth? Not an OS, but bare-bones code hardwired into the device, what we call proprietary firmware. Imagine software stripped down to its absolute necessity, a technological Spartan existence. It was code written by Motorola, Nokia, or Ericsson exclusively for their device. It performed 3 functions: make a call, save 10 numbers, and display battery life. That was it. There was no user interface to speak of, just menus navigated by physical buttons. It was a digital lockbox, not a platform. The manufacturers held all the keys, all the control, and all the revenue. The elegance of the brick age was its simplicity, a purity born of technological limitation. There was no bloatware, no endless updates, and crucially, no ecosystem to manage. The design philosophy was this: the hardware is the product, and the software is merely the utility that makes the hardware function. When you bought a Nokia, you bought Nokia's unique flavor of firmware. You were locked into their vision entirely. This era set the original precedent for mobile power, total control in the hands of the hardware maker. This proprietary foundation gave early leaders like Motorola and Nokia an enormous structural advantage. They owned the intellectual property entirely, dictating every single feature and fixing every single bug themselves. The disadvantage, however, was the profound lack of scalability. Each new feature had to be coded from scratch for a specific piece of hardware and was nearly impossible to share across models, let alone competitors. This single closed approach would eventually become the anchor that weighed the giants down when the open-source floodgates opened. For a time, though, in the 80s and early 90s, this closed, expensive, and exclusive system was the absolute king, ruling a market defined by scarcity and high-stakes financial power. If the brick age was the wild west of hardware, Symbian was the first grand unified kingdom. Born in 1998 from the unlikely alliance of 3 giants, Nokia, Ericsson, and Motorola, it was the world's first real, scalable smartphone operating system. It was the moment the phone's brain went from being a utility to a platform. For a generation, Symbian was the smartphone. It powered the legendary, nearly indestructible Nokia 3310, the device that introduced millions to the digital world. Complete with the addictive simplicity of Snake, it also powered the executive-level Nokia Communicator, a clamshell device that was a pocket PC before the term was commonplace. This was the OS that dressed James Bond's Sony Ericsson in Die Another Day. Symbian was ubiquitous, powerful, and by its 2006 peak, controlled over half the planet's smartphones. It was the undisputed world champion, the emperor who believed his throne was indestructible. Symbian's structural genius lay in its efficiency. Built on the Cyan ePoC platform, it was incredibly lightweight, allowing phones to achieve week-long battery life and offering true, if clunky, multitasking long before its competitors. It was the engineering marvel of its time, designed for processors that were slow and memory that was scarce. The user experience, however, was a labyrinth of nested menus, demanding patience and a hackerish charm. You needed a PC to install most apps, and the system constantly asked, "Do you really want to exit?" A relic of its resource-starved roots. The tragedy of Symbian, the reason it aged like milk against the coming tsunami, was that it was fundamentally designed for the keypad and the stylus, not the finger. It was engineered for precision navigation, where a button click moved you exactly one step. When the iPhone arrived in 2007 with its effortless, expansive touchscreen, Symbian's world collapsed. Its clunky icons and deep, text-heavy menus were simply incapable of fluid fingertip interaction. It was the perfect horse-drawn carriage unable to evolve into an automobile. Nokia's hubris played a devastating role. They saw Symbian's market share as a defense, believing sheer volume would outlast an upstart like the iPhone. They tried to bolt touch capability onto the old, deep-seated structure, resulting in Frankenstein devices like the Nokia N97. The failure wasn't just technical. It was a failure of vision, a refusal to accept that the interface was the new battleground, not the underlying code. The empire fell swiftly, not because it stopped working, but because it stopped feeling relevant. The lesson of Symbian is sharp. Past success is the greatest enemy of future adaptation. While the world was exploring Symbian's maze or playing Snake, a different kind of revolution was brewing, a revolution built on the uncompromising foundation of security and efficiency. This was the BlackBerry OS, the undisputed ruler of the corporate realm, the click-clack kingdom. BlackBerry, then known as Research in Motion, RIM, wasn't selling a phone. It was selling a digital briefcase. It pioneered secure, push-based email, instantly connecting the world's CEOs. Politicians, yes, President Obama was a famous adherent, and anyone whose productivity demanded immediacy. The defining feature was, of course, that glorious physical keyboard, a masterpiece of miniature engineering that provided the satisfying, tactile click-click-lick of genuine productivity. It was the sound of money being made. Beyond the keyboard, BlackBerry's core innovation was its network. BBM, its encrypted messaging service, was WhatsApp, Signal, and iMessage rolled into one, years ahead of its time. It was the first true mobile social network, but a closed, exclusive one, defined by the secure exchange of pins. The IT department loved BlackBerry because its servers provided enterprise-grade security and reliability. The users loved it because it was a tool that felt purpose-built for their important lives. The rise of the iPhone and Android presented BlackBerry not with a technical challenge, but a cultural one. The smartphone stopped being a tool and started being an entertainment device, a social hub. Then Instagram happened. The world's focus shifted from secure email and productivity to photography, visual media, and shared experiences. BlackBerry, with its small, low-resolution screen and button-focused OS, had no room to host the party. Management's response was a catastrophic series of half-measures. They tried to bolt on an inferior touchscreen experience while clinging to the keyboard. They ignored their developer community, leaving the platform app-starved. Their late flirtation with Android, effectively admitting defeat by adopting their rival's soul, was the final tragic surrender. The BlackBerry OS was a fortress built to withstand any corporate threat, but it was defenseless against the rising tide of consumer desire for fun, media, and a vibrant app ecosystem. The fall of BlackBerry is a profound business lesson. The best tool for an old problem is useless if the market has moved on to a new one. Efficiency and security are foundational, but they cannot win when pitted against the overwhelming human desire for connection and entertainment. By the mid-2010s, the kingdom built on secure clicks was silent, its once mighty throne empty. A stark reminder that even the most secure system can be rendered irrelevant by cultural shift. If the mobile OS war has a spiritual victim, an operating system universally praised for its elegance, but doomed by circumstance, it is the Palm lineage. This story begins in 1996 with Palm OS, giving early techies their first true pocket organizers, a device where the stylus dreams began. Palm established the template for mobile information management long before phones took over. The real tragedy, however, came in 2009 with Palm's desperate, brilliant swing for the fences, WebOS. This was not just a new OS. It was a conceptual leap years ahead of its competition. WebOS offered two groundbreaking innovations, card-based multitasking and swipe gestures. While iOS was still demanding a double tap of the home button to see recent apps, WebOS was allowing users to flick between live, full-screen cards apps running in the background with a stunning, fluid elegance. This was the foundation of modern mobile multitasking, a UI concept refined years later by both Apple and Google. Critics swooned. Reviewers called it a masterpiece of mobile design. The interface was clean, fast, and inherently logical. It was the future, wrapped in the gorgeous hardware of the Palm Pre. But here's where the story turns cruel. The wallet stayed closed. Palm, the company, was too small, too starved for cash, and too late to the fight. They lacked the manufacturing scale of Nokia, the developer bait of Google, and the marketing muscle of Apple. Developers saw the low user base and chose the sure bet of the two emerging giants, creating an app gap that WebOS could not bridge. Even the most beautiful code cannot survive without a thriving developer ecosystem to feed it. The inevitable happened. Palm ran out of money and was bought by HP in 2010. The behemoth of HP, with its PC-centric culture, didn't understand what it had acquired. After a disastrous year of trying to force WebOS onto tablets and printers, HP unceremoniously retired the mobile effort, effectively executing the most promising operating system of its time. The poignant code to this story is that WebOS was too good to truly die. It found an unexpected second life when LG bought the technology and installed it in millions of LG smart TVs. Today, the elegant card-based navigation designed for your pocket lives on inside your 65-inch living room screen. WebOS is the beautiful what-if of the mobile age, proving that innovation alone is not enough. It must be backed by colossal scale and impeccable timing. In 2010, the mobile OS graveyard was already filling up. Yet a new challenger arrived with the backing of a trillion-dollar behemoth, Microsoft. Their entry, Windows Phone, wasn't just another competitor. It was a deliberate, radical attempt to redefine the mobile interface, and for a glorious, brief moment, it succeeded. It was the gorgeous loser of the smartphone wars. Windows Phone threw out the desktop metaphor entirely and embraced live tiles. These were not static icons. They were colorful, animated, minimalist blocks that delivered real-time information, a weather forecast, a social media update, a text message preview directly onto the home screen without needing to open the app. The design philosophy Metro was flat, typography-focused, and featured smooth animations that felt futuristic and utterly fluid. Navigating Windows Phone was a delight. It possessed a minimalist magic that was genuinely refreshing against the crowded grid of icons on iOS and Android. The problem, however, was not the architecture. It was the ecosystem, and the app gap was fatal. A platform is defined by what you can do on it, and Microsoft, for all its might, could not convince developers to create the necessary software. Crucial, high-volume apps like Instagram, Snapchat, and for a long time, an official YouTube app were missing or woefully out of date. This created a profound network effect failure. Users wouldn't buy the phone because their favorite apps weren't there. Developers wouldn't develop for the phone because the users weren't there. It was a perfect, deadly circular logic. Microsoft spent billions trying to force the issue, famously buying Nokia's mobile division. Yet they made a critical strategic blunder. Instead of focusing on their unique design, they tried to mimic iOS and Android, sacrificing their distinct aesthetic in the process. The very soul of the operating system was diluted in a desperate attempt to catch up. By 2017, even the colossal resources of Microsoft gave up. The company formally ended support for the OS, leaving a void. Windows Phone stands as a testament to the brutal, non-negotiable reality of the modern platform war. In the ecosystem battle, beauty is meaningless if utility is absent. It was the prettiest OS that never was. A beautiful piece of UI/UX design that was crushed not by superior technology, but by the relentless, all-consuming power of the App Store network effect. Take a moment of silence for the live tiles, a beautiful concept extinguished too soon. The mobile OS battlefield fundamentally changed on a single day in January 2007. Steve Jobs held up the iPhone and declared, "No keyboard, no stylus, just glass and fingers." This was the moment the smartphone became the personal computer of the 21st century. The launch of the device was revolutionary, but the true masterstroke was yet to come. A year later, the launch of the App Store didn't just sell software. It created a platform, a vibrant economy that turned phones into the single most powerful consumer channel in history. The iPhone's success was not just about the hardware, though it was elegant. It was about the seamless ecosystem, long-term software support, and the buttery performance that defined premium mobile computing. The iOS philosophy is one of uncompromising quality, where control is not a necessary evil, but a feature. This control is the defining characteristic of the iOS experience, a concept lovingly dubbed the walled garden. Apple manages every aspect of your experience: the hardware, the software, and the distribution of every single app. This results in the consistency that millions of users crave, unmatched security, a cohesive user experience across all Apple devices, and excellent performance even on older hardware. It is a predictable, beautiful environment. But this beautiful, functional control comes at a specific price. A set of non-negotiable rules you must obey. No sideloading, you cannot install software outside the App Store. Limited theme freedom, Your phone looks how Apple wants it to look. And famously, the serial removal of features Apple deems obsolete, like the headphone jack. You are not the master of your device. You are a valued, trusted resident in a highly secure, beautifully managed community. The success of iOS is a study in vertical integration. By controlling the chip, the OS, and the marketplace, Apple removes the chaos and fragmentation that plagued its competitors. It chose a smaller, more profitable, and ultimately dominant path by prioritizing a premium, frictionless experience over openness. It is an act of benevolent technological dictatorship, beautiful, bossy, and still dominant, proving that many consumers are willing to trade maximum freedom for maximum convenience and security. If iOS is the meticulously curated, high-end shopping mall, then Android is the world's largest, most chaotic, and most vibrant open market. Google's answer to the iPhone, launched in 2008, was the antithesis of the walled garden. It was open source, an invitation to the world to come build, adapt, and innovate. The result was a revolutionary act of democratization. Samsung, HTC, LG, Xiaomi, everyone jumped in. Android became a foundational toolkit that could be adapted to nearly any piece of hardware at nearly any price point, from the cheapest phone in the developing world to the most expensive flagship. This open philosophy made Android the OS of possibility. Users could install custom launchers, practice side-loading applications outside of Google's store, and experiment with custom ROMs. It became the preferred OS for tinkerers and anyone who prized absolute control over convenience. This freedom, however, came at a staggering cost: chaos and fragmentation. The Android ecosystem is a mess of manufacturers, carriers, and varying hardware specifications. Do you want the latest software updates? The answer is tragically complex. Depends on the manufacturer and the phase of the moon. The time it takes for a new version of the OS to reach a specific device is wildly inconsistent, leaving a significant portion of the user base on older, less secure versions. And yes, bloatware and necessary, pre-installed manufacturer or carrier apps is virtually guaranteed. Despite the technical debt and the chaotic experience, Android's open nature allowed it to achieve a scale that iOS could never match. By catering to every price point and every corner of the globe, Android became the undeniable volume champion, powering 70 to 80% of the planet's mobile devices. It is the ultimate expression of the free market in software, surviving and thriving through sheer ubiquity. Together, the two giants created the ultimate market duopoly. iOS provides the high margin, consistent experience, and Android provides the global reach and ultimate flexibility. They happily coexist while their combined force crushed the old guard into an almost invisible market share. Android's story teaches us that in the digital age, speed and scale trump perfection every single time. The mobile OS war is a story of failure, but also one of strategic retreat, the ability to lose the main battle, only to quietly win 1,000 smaller, more crucial skirmishes. Enter Tizen. Born in 2012 from a partnership between Samsung and Intel, Tizen was a Linux-based operating system designed to be a direct competitor to Android in the phone market. Tizen had all the hallmarks of a promising platform. It was fast, light, and offered great battery life, all critical ingredients for mobile success. Samsung, the world's largest phone maker, launched a few phone models running Tizen, primarily in emerging markets. But the result was the predictable, crushing defeat. Nobody wanted a smartphone without the Play Store. Without the Google ecosystem, Gmail, Maps, YouTube, and the entire app library, the device was a high-tech brick. Tizen decisively lost the phone war. The real story, however, is what happened next: the pivot. Instead of pouring billions more into a lost mobile cause, Samsung executed a brilliant strategic retreat. They decided to use Tizen to power everything else they manufactured. Today, Tizen is a quiet conqueror. It powers Samsung's best-selling line of Galaxy watches, before the switch to Wear OS. And more importantly, it runs over 270 million Samsung smart TVs. You interact with Tizen when you stream your favorite show, when you check the weather on your smart fridge, and possibly when you program your Wi-Fi-enabled washing machine. Tizen's triumph is a masterclass in leveraging existing industrial scale. Samsung realized the future of the OS wasn't just in the pocket. It was in the home, the Internet of Things, IoT, where efficiency and security are prioritized over app selection. In this domain, Tizen's small footprint and resource efficiency are perfect advantages. It quietly won living rooms and wrists, achieving massive market penetration by operating beneath the visibility of the mobile giants. The lesson of Tizen is about recognizing the true battleground. Sometimes, losing the phone war is the only way to win the ecosystem war. In 2013, the non-profit idealism of Mozilla, the team behind the venerable Firefox browser, led to the launch of an OS based on a bold, beautiful premise: Firefox OS. This was a truly open-source platform, a grassroots rebellion against the walled gardens of Apple and the creeping influence of Google. The idea was philosophically pure and technically elegant. Everything runs as a web app. Instead of native code that required complex programming and approval, every application from the phone dialer to the calculator to Twitter would be built using standard web technologies, HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. This would make it incredibly easy for developers to create software and would dramatically lower the cost of the devices. The target was clear: cheap phones for emerging markets, bringing the internet to millions for the first time without forcing them into a high-priced ecosystem. The interface was clean, the idea noble, and the potential for a truly open mobile internet was tantalizing. But idealism quickly shattered against commercial reality. Firefox OS lacked two things necessary for survival: carrier love and developer commitment. Mobile carriers, who often profit from bloatware and proprietary services, saw no advantage in promoting a phone that was so open and cheap. More critically, developers were hesitant. Why code for a third tiny platform when the majority of users were on iOS and Android? Furthermore, the performance of web apps in 2013 was sluggish compared to native applications, leading to a frustrating user experience that felt slow and incomplete. Mozilla fought hard, partnering with a few global carriers, but the platform could never gain critical mass. The noble idea was crushed by market inertia. Despite its strong foundations and clear philosophical advantage, Firefox OS was dead by 2016. It proves that the "if you build it, they will come" maxim does not apply to platform wars. No matter how open, clean, or cheap your OS is, without the immediate, enthusiastic support of the two most important gatekeepers, the carriers and the developers, you will fail. It was the web dream that simply wasn't ready to challenge the established empires. The story of the mobile OS war is dominated by smartphones, yet a quiet, revolutionary subversion occurred in the low-cost markets of the global south. This is the realm of KaiOS, the operating system for the feature phone that refused to die. KaiOS is essentially a modern, lightweight operating system born from the ashes of Firefox, OS designed to run on traditional classic button phones. Its genius is in its functional minimalism. Take a beloved, long battery life device, and add two critical modern features: 4G connectivity and the essential lightweight versions of modern apps like WhatsApp, YouTube, and Facebook. The result has been a phenomenal, under-the-radar success story. KaiOS became the surprise number 2 or number 3 mobile OS in massive markets like India and Africa. Its appeal is purely pragmatic. It's incredibly affordable, offers a long battery life measured in days, and most importantly, provides a crucial, low barrier to entry first taste of the internet for millions of users. It acts as the necessary digital bridge between the old world of calls and texts and the new world of apps and social media. While the user experience involves the nostalgic frustration of T9 typing pain and a small, non-touch screen, KaiOS fulfills a critical societal function. It offers a viable alternative for users who cannot afford a $100 smartphone or who live in areas where charging ports and reliable power are scarce. KaiOS's success is a potent reminder that innovation isn't always about creating the most advanced, expensive, or aesthetically pleasing technology. Sometimes it's about creating the most accessible and necessary solution for the largest number of people. It shows that the true battle for global digital domination is not just at the high-end flagship level. It's also in the trenches of affordability, where KaiOS keeps the dumb phone dream alive and proves that functionality and necessity can often beat sheer processing power. The newest, most geopolitically charged chapter in the OS war began in 2019 with a thunderous event: the US sanctions that cut Huawei off from Google services. This was not a corporate failure. It was a political expulsion. Huawei, suddenly without the ability to use Google's proprietary version of Android, which includes the crucial Play Store, faced total annihilation in the global phone market. 3 months later, Huawei defiantly unveiled Harmony OS, Hongmeng in Chinese. The initial global response was cynical, and for good reason. At first, Harmony OS was essentially Android in a different suit, using the open-source base of Android, AOSP, while replacing Google's services with Huawei's own. It was a lifeboat, a temporary solution to keep the phones running. The true revolutionary shift began around 2024. Huawei announced that Harmony OS Next would drop all Android code, running only native Harmony OS apps. This is the moment the OS becomes a true, independent platform. It represents a monumental undertaking, the creation of a completely new, massive app ecosystem from the ground up, designed to power not just phones but Huawei's entire portfolio of wearables, PCs, and smart home devices within China. Harmony OS is more than an operating system. It is a symbol of technological sovereignty. Its success is driven less by superior engineering and more by national necessity and the vast scale of the domestic Chinese market. It is a direct reaction to the realization that no nation, just digital infrastructure, can be truly independent if its core operating system is controlled by another government. While its immediate global appeal is limited by the lack of Western apps, Harmony OS is rapidly building its own gravitational pull in the East. It is a powerful reminder that the future of technology platforms is not just an economic competition between Apple and Google. It is increasingly a geopolitical competition between nations. For now, Harmony OS is less a revolution and more an effort toward independence, and its long-term success will determine the shape of the global digital economy. Our final stop in the mobile OS landscape is a fascinating lesson in strategic commercial engineering, Fire OS. This is not an independent creation. It is a powerful example of Android forking. Amazon takes the open-source Android codebase, strips it clean of all Google services and architecture, and then injects it with an overwhelming dose of Alexa and the Amazon App Store. Fire OS is the software equivalent of a perfectly designed storefront. It is the operating system for anyone who already lives in Primeville. Its core mission is not to be a general-purpose computer, but to be an optimized, frictionless commerce portal. The hardware Amazon's Fire tablets and Fire TV sticks are often sold at or near cost, because the true profit is made when the user is locked into the easy consumption of Kindle books, Prime Video, and Amazon's vast retail ecosystem. If your primary digital consumption revolves around Amazon services, Fire OS is perfect. It is fast, intuitive within its own boundaries, and deeply integrated with Alexa voice commands. However, the moment you want to step outside of that garden, the moment you need YouTube or a mainstream, Google-centric service like Gmail without complicated hacks, the experience becomes frustratingly limited. Amazon's control is rigid and focused entirely on the consumption of their own content. Fire OS is a clear, concise case study on the immense power of the open-source model. Google created the code, but Amazon used the freedom granted by that code to create a powerful, self-sustaining competitor focused entirely on e-commerce. It demonstrates that the OS war can be won not just through innovation or scale, but through vertical integration of the software directly into a massive existing retail pipeline. It's the Android that exists purely to sell you more things. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. Wishing you all the very best of health and happiness. And if you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the heart of technology.